I've got a little something for you before we jump into today's episode. If you've been listening, taking notes, and doing all the things, and you're still not where you want to be, it's not a strategy problem. It's an ownership problem. Most people stay there. They keep consuming, keep waiting, and keep telling themselves they'll move when it feels easier. House of Influence isn't for those women. This is my 6-month mastermind for women who are ready to be seen, lead from the front, and build real authority in their space. The ones who are done hiding, done second guessing, and ready to turn their visibility into clients, opportunities, and income. If you know you're that woman, you can apply through the link in the show notes. Now let's dive into today's episode. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the show. I'm so excited you are here with us today. I have a really fun episode for you. My girlfriend Kat is back on the podcast. Kat is a former client turned really good friend of mine who we are both in launch for our masterminds right now. And so I just got to record with Kat for probably a really long time. I don't even know if that was 45 minutes, an hour. She got me yapping and I just couldn't stop because I was just so excited to connect with her because we go back about 2.5, almost 3 years. And also I'm really excited for, what's to come for my mastermind. I'm really excited that the people that I have been able to coach and mentor are creating their own containers, their own masterminds, and sharing their genius with their community and their world. And that's what this is all about is, expanding and helping people realize their potential, that they were once the mentee and now they're the mentor. And it's just like this beautiful evolution that I really got to experience in the beauty industry as I brought up different people as my assistants in the hair world, but now getting to do it in real life with business and life and just people of all different walks of life doing different things. It's a really cool thing. So I'm in my feels right now as we start this episode. And Kat, I love you so much. I could not be more proud of the woman you are, the human you are, the compassionate giver. Just you are the epitome of a perfect client, if you will. You guys, we all have those. I've had a handful of them where I'm like, I want more Cats and more Brees and more Christines and Sarahs. I have a handful of them now that I can call by name when I envision the women I want to call into my spaces. So tell us a little bit about, where you started, about what I met you 2.5 years ago, and where were you? Because we're going to do this a little bit backwards of Kat's got a backstory that would blow your mind, and what she's created now is just insane. But where were you at 2.5 years ago when we first met and you decided I need a mentor or someone in my life to help me with where I want to go?
Yeah. Well, first off, thank you for having me back on the show because it's been a lot's happened in the last 2 years since I've been on here. But 2.5 years ago, it was crazy. That's when I had just attended my first Powerhouse Women event in 2023. So it was August of 2023. That's how we connected, was through Six Figure School with Lindsay. And I remember doing her 30-day challenge that she does. And two things happened. One, my 30-day challenge was, funny enough, not related to business. It was don't drink alcohol for 30 days because I knew it was actually stopping me from taking action on anything or figuring out why I was feeling the way I was feeling, why I felt disconnected, where the passion had gone. And in the midst of that, I remember the podcast dropped in. And I had no thought, no desire at that point to do a podcast. And I had just been kind of introduced to that world a year before when I started listening to Lori Harder's podcast, Earn Your Happy, and dove way back in her archives of the first few episodes. And we were just talking about this also in the other episode. But I realized I was like, I just need to start sharing. I need to start talking. And Imperfectly Impactful literally dropped in at the same time. It was like, I'm going to do a podcast about how you don't have to be perfect to make an impact on yourself or other people. And I think I reached out to you because you were about to launch your 3-day course, or I forget, with 5 days. It was a very quick, small, but it was all about getting your podcast started and launching it. And when I reached out to you, I also remember getting pushback from my sister and my mom at the same time. And they were like, you don't have the capacity. You're still working in hotels. You're about to start a new job and transition over into this. You're going to be traveling twice a month. No way in hell you're going to be able to launch a podcast and do all this at the same time. And I was like, you watch me because I'm going to do this. I was like, there is a reason behind this. And so that's when I found you. We connected. I joined this, what was it? Start Your Damn Podcast, I think, course is what it was. Yep. And I did that with you beginning of November. And in the process of that 5 days, I was like, I need someone to hold me accountable. Someone that's going to tell me to show up for the podcast. I just transitioned jobs. I knew entrepreneurship life was in the near future for me. I didn't know how much. And so I think literally a week later, I reached out to you and said, okay, podcast is going live December 1st. I need a coach. I need somebody who's going to push me lovingly and get me through this next 6 months to a year. And everything changed after that. I mean, literally, we worked together for that 6 months. I left. I decided in like that January, I was leaving my corporate job, the brand new job I had just taken on in March to go all in on entrepreneurship for at least a year. I was giving myself a year. Right after March, when we wrapped up, I went straight into your mastermind for 6 months, came out to Arizona. We had our retreat time also in person, just all the things. And I'll be honest, it was a really hard first year, but because of you and even your connections and your network and the people and getting in the right rooms, it changed. It was hard, but I got through it, and it's what changed everything to get me where I am now.
You guys, it's so cool. And I mean, yeah, yes, yay that I got to be a part of this. But I just, when I hear like the decisiveness of taking action and like not letting your family tell you you don't have the capacity, like I just, I feel that viscerally. And I know so many people might still be sitting in that space right now or having had let somebody tell them they shouldn't do something or can't do something. I mean, what was the thing out? Because when I met you, like before we even started working together, what version of you would have been sitting across from me right now? Like the girl who before you even attended Powerhouse event, like who was she?
A corporate girl who was gonna open her own hotel or work her way up to general manager. She was a people pleaser, said yes to everything, was working, would be willing to work. At that point, I was not working 16, 20-hour days, but was willing to put in 16, 20-hour days for the benefit of other people and not herself. Not even really taking care of herself. Like I had used to, a few years prior to that, had taken care of myself very well, almost to an extreme, unhealthily, but went the complete opposite when I got into like deep hotel work and then confusion and stuff on who I am and where I was going and what I wanted. I like paused everything and I was an all or nothing person, completely different from the person I am now.
What would she not believe about your life right now? That version of you.
Oh, everything. If you don't know, I am pregnant right now as we're recording this episode. She wouldn't believe that. She didn't want kids. Like, had like fully said she did not want kids. I don't think she would believe I have a 6-figure, like be shocked there's a 6-figure business that's growing, that I'm hiring a team, that I can hire a team, that we're buying a house. Like there's so many things that she just went. I think that in the biggest thing of all she would not believe or would be shocked by is how I am okay saying no and okay with it. And it's like, yeah, it hurts a little bit still. Like when I have to tell somebody no, I still feel like sometimes I have to give an explanation and there needs to be all these reasons behind it, but I will still say no and not second guess it.
You shared a little bit about what your life kind of looked like as far as like the extreme training and then getting into hospitality and going the opposite way of like sometimes maybe drinking to numb things. Like, what did your life actually look like when you were making, what was it, around 75K a year? That was your annual salary in hospitality. Like, what was your life like then?
We're gonna go with the like Texas, Virginia time frame is where I'll go with that. I was working anywhere from 12 to 24-hour days, literally putting that in. I was on call, so a lot of times I would be called in at 3, 4 in the morning sometimes for my night auditor. And I wouldn't have left the hotel until 11 p.m. the night before, or I'd stay until 1 or 2 in the morning and then go home, sleep, and come back in by 7 a.m. I was managing everything and running around. I was not great at delegating. I was not a delegator. I was like, it's not worth my time to train. I'd rather just do it myself, be done, have it over with. And then outside of it, the way I was coping was either excessively working out. So imagine I work from 7 a.m. until, let's say, 11 p.m. or 1 a.m. I was still getting up 2 or 3 hours before I had to go in, and I go run 8 miles, or I do a 2-3 mile run and then a strength workout on top of that. And I was very strict on my food. So like I prepped everything. Somehow in the midst of all that, I found time to prep all my food. I would make all of my food. We rarely ate out. And then I would drink. That was the thing I spent a good chunk of my money on, was drinking, because it was the only way to numb all the stress and anxiety and everything that was going on. Prime example was in Texas, January of 2020, funny enough, before COVID fully set in. I actually got sick. I went into work. And I looked at my AGM, my assistant general manager at the time, and I said, I don't feel good. I think I need to go to urgent care. I've scheduled an appointment. It's in a couple hours. I'm hanging out in my office till then to try to get some things done. She goes, okay. So went to urgent care. They did whatever testing it was. They took an x-ray of my chest and they were like, you have a severe case of bronchitis or something. Like, we can't tell what it is exactly. We think it was COVID at that point, but they couldn't tell what it was. They gave me an inhaler. They gave me antibiotics. I called work to say, hey, this is what they told me. And my co-manager at the time, who was supposed to cover for me, was like, well, I can't stay. I can't cover your PM shift. as manager for the night. And my AGM didn't say anything. My general manager didn't say anything. And so I went back to work. So at that point, it was like 11 a.m., noon. There was a CVS attached to our building. So I went and got my stuff from the CVS there, went back. I worked until 1 a.m. that next morning, went home, slept. My mom flew out actually after the next day, and she goes, "You're not going to work. You're not working when you're at the house. You're not going into work." She's like, "You need to recover. If you have a severe case of bronchitis, this could turn into pneumonia. You'll be in the hospital, all these things." But the sad part was I did it to myself, but I also didn't have a team that supported me and was willing to step in. It was kind of like it was blown off, like, "No, you're fine" type situation. And a few months later, when the hotel shut down because of COVID, I was like, "Well, there you go." I was like, that's what you deserve. Like, sorry, but it was a really rough time. And I put myself through a very similar situation at the next place, even too, from 2020 to 2021. But it was not good. And I was not in a good place mentally, physically, all the things.
I can imagine that version of you never wanting children. When would you have even squeezed one? You couldn't even go to a fucking doctor's appointment, let alone call in sick. Like, you think about where you are in certain times of your life of like, no wonder that's how I felt. That wouldn't even have been an option. And I know you were young because you're still young now, but you were how old then?
That job, I was 22.
Yeah. Baby, managing a hotel, not being able to like sleep, like you're still in the early prime of your like life. This is when you should be off having fun still. Yes, you can have a career, but okay. So when all that happened, at what point did you realize like staying where you were was like 100% no longer an option? Because I know you came to Powerhouse before you quit that job.
Yeah. Well, and at that point, I was at a different job that I had the most space I'd ever had. And so that was January of 2020. Hotel closed in March. August of 2020, I got a new job in Virginia, and that's when I moved. And I spent a year and a half there. And again, a very bad, not good situation. And I realized it was so hard leaving the property because the hotel I worked at there, I love the owners. Like, they cared about me. They cared about the people. They cared about the property. But I, again, had been at extremes. It wasn't healthy. And I hit a wall, and I actually looked at my then boyfriend. He was not even my fiance yet. And I said, "I can't keep doing this." He's like, "No." He's like, "I can't keep watching you do this. Like, this is just not healthy." And I was very fortunate because I kind of had been eyeing jobs. And an old director I had back in Texas at a really good property, it was my first job actually out of college. She had moved to Nashville and had a position open in housekeeping as an assistant director at a 600-room hotel. And I was like, I want that job because there's a director above me, there's managers below me, I was like, I need tiers. I can't be the one that everyone comes to for everything. And we moved. I got that job. We moved out to Nashville, and I spent a year and a half before Powerhouse. So that's the job I was in when I came to Powerhouse. And I went from working 6-7 days to 5 days a week, 10-hour days. And then that was when Marriott also moved down to 4 days a week, 10-hour days. I had gone from 6-7 days all the way down to a 4-day work week. And that's when I started listening to Lori's podcast. That's when I all of a sudden had all this space to start really thinking about, who am I? What am I doing? Why am I doing this anymore? And it kind of started that traction of, okay, I got to put myself in a room. What's personal development? I never even heard that before, aside from the hotel world. I was like, what is this? I only know my hotel events. And it's what I needed to take the step out to then start taking the leaps and risk and realize that wasn't the place for me to be anymore. It was for its season, and I learned a lot, but it wasn't meant for me anymore.
Gosh, I love this story. I mean, I knew a lot of it, but I'd kind of forgotten some of those like gnarly details. I mean, and that's a lot. And I think a lot of people listening can relate in their own capacity of places they've stayed because they felt like they had no other option, or the hours they were being asked to work just was what it was in that particular industry. I mean, I used to work, 10, 12-hour days, 5-6 days a week too. We worked 9 to 9. Like, that was the joke. I didn't even know what happy hour looked like. Everyone's like, "Oh, happy." I'm like, "What? I don't even, what time is happy hour?" Like, I've never even seen a Saturday, let alone a happy hour. That's just what you know when you're in it sometimes. And it's usually not until you know better that you can even think about doing better. And I don't think like the Maya Angelou quote of like, once you know better, you got to do better. It's like, no, that's not always the case for everybody. We can't always just like make changes because at the detriment of like our careers or our families, like we can't just pick up and move. But it sounds like you were able to move literally physically to jobs that better suited you And that knowingness of what you don't want, I think in the early ages of like your 20s is probably been the catalyst to helping you build the foundation of knowing what you do want now in your 30s and moving into being a parent and like all of that stuff that's coming your way this side of the fence. Cause it's like you have that juxtapose of like what life could be like if you were stuck in something like that still. And if you hadn't taken the leap and tried something new and put yourself out there, and we'll just be honest, like made a scary investment of a pretty high price point. Like, how do you go from that type of a lifestyle, that sort of scarcity in a sense of like, if I don't do this, I'm going to lose my job, to investing $10,000 into coaching with somebody like me who you just met through an event space? Like, walk me through that thought process. Was there a lot of thinking, or was it just like you came into the podcast course, we accomplished one thing, and then you were like, okay, she seems like the accountability coach? Was there like a shift that had to happen for your mindset, or were you just like willing at that point to try anything?
I think at that point, I was just willing to try anything, and I had still my corporate job. Even though it wasn't hotels related, I was still in a corporate job getting paid 70 or 75,000. So, like, I knew I had stable income, that the risk was not as hard and as on me because the money was coming in no matter what.
Yeah.
And when I left corporate in March, that risk, I will be honest, I look back sometimes that first couple of months and was like, was that worth it? Was that worth it? Was that really worth spending $10,000 and then going into the mastermind? Because that was additional, a little bit on top of that too. And was like, should I just spend that money? Because now we have no money coming in. I didn't say this before, but during that entire time living with my boyfriend, who turned fiance, who's now a husband, I was the breadwinner, and I still am the breadwinner. And I say that like not to be like egotistical or cocky or anything, but like it was me making the money to pay all of our bills, to pay where we were living for the groceries, any trips we were taking. It was me. And so I was like, did I make a mistake in spending all that money to now not having anything aside from what's in our savings? And it took me a solid couple months afterwards to be like, oh no, that was worth every penny because of where I am now. If I had not done that, I would have never left corporate. I would have never met the people that I did. I would have never learned and gotten the opportunities I was able to for events when I was going through the event stuff, never met the people I did that then went into my event host community, and never would I have turned locally and started to think about fractional or consult. Like, none of this would have happened if I hadn't done that. And honestly, it taught me a lot about financially of being intentional. I was like, that was a very intentional investment. There are other things I was not very intentional about the rest of that year, that I probably, certain rooms maybe I put myself in that I shouldn't have invested in. We talked about this on my podcast a little bit, is like, what are the right rooms? How do you determine which rooms are meant for you, and being really intentional? And I am very much so now. I'm like, where am I putting myself and where is my money going? But there was a moment of that. Did I make the right decision? And looking back, I had to like, wait, you have to kind of, what we talked about, the Steve Jobs quote, you have to like connect the dots backwards, is realizing how much of an impact that made me. And then also getting to reflect back and say, but what also during that time maybe was not very much intentionality behind it, and learning moving forwards. But I will never regret that investment. And I'm so glad I said yes when I did in that moment, because I had the stability to say yes and take the risk and take the leap, and literally would not be where I am without you.
I feel that. I know. I remember after I finished that first 6 months in that mastermind, leaving with a couple of good friends. And that was actually my one intention when I joined the mastermind that I joined back in 2018. I was like, okay, I wasn't clear on the ROI. It was a pretty big investment as well. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't have any friends that get where I'm at right now, who don't understand like where I want to go. Everybody thinks like more, you want to do something else. Like, what you have is amazing. You've built this incredible business. And I remember thinking like, I need friends who understand where I want to go, who are going to push me, hold me accountable, like be there with me through these ups and downs that I knew would come. And I left that room with a couple of those good friends who were able to help me push through in different seasons, and to introduce me to different people, and to, be there when you need someone to cry. And then also, when you have wins in your business, if you don't have people that you can brag to, that's really difficult too, because you need somewhere to be able to share these wins when they happen, because they won't happen if you're staying small and not sharing them. I'm not talking about the people who are showing up on social media talking about the millions that they make per month, but what I am saying is like this close circle of people, those richer relationships that you have in your life, those inner circle type of people, they come often from rooms like this. And you've seen it firsthand now that you're running your own masterminds and events, how much of these bonds that can happen when people are able to be vulnerable and share what it is that they really want when they've never really been able to say it anywhere else. And then having the girl sit next to you saying, I can help you with that, or I know someone who can help you, or I want to be there for you. And, it's such a magical thing that happens. I mean, shit, do you ever look back and think like, what would have happened if you didn't come to Powerhouse, invest in six-figure school, start the podcast, coach with me? Like,
I would still be in hotels and probably just working my way through. I mean, we joked even that we had talked about a kid way back at some point. And if I'd had a kid then, when we had originally talked about it, I would never left hotels because it was financial stability. I wouldn't have taken the risk that I did. And like, that's where the timing comes in. But I can't even imagine not meeting Desiree, who like was in the mastermind with me. And she was one of my first hires when I started doing event planning, and she hired me on for her event. And like, we're going into year 3, and no, I don't do events anymore, but I still go out there and help her because of the connection. And we have a friendship, and we'll jump on power hours still. And it's cool to see the connections, and even it's the collaborations, it's the partnership, and the people getting hired. I mean, you even brought a guest speaker in Emily. I'm going to blank on her last name, who does the marketing and everything. Emily had come in talking about like niche marketing and other things. I went and hired her for like one of her little group container things right afterwards as well. And just things that like I knew there was a reason, and there's all these connections that have happened by being in those rooms and being able to sit down and have someone cheer you on or say, I can help you, or, oh my gosh, you can help me, or like, let's get on a co-working power hour and get some things done. I need some accountability. You don't have that when you aren't in those rooms or in those containers. And that's been like the biggest thing and the coolest thing I've seen even with my own now is getting to see other people start to collaborate and partner and hire each other by being in the rooms I've created. And that was cool because I had never felt that before. And I'm like, oh, this is what like Jess was feeling when she was seeing us talk to one another and then go off and do things together. Like, it's a really cool feeling.
Yeah. I mean, that proximity to other women that are in motion too is such a game changer, because it's like that team environment. Like, you ever played team sports? You don't want to let your team down either, and you don't want to be the weakest link. So it brings up that like old version of like really great competitive energy, because you want to all stay in motion. You want to have your wins to share because you want to see them win, and 2, you want to be keeping pace with everybody. And so that's why they say you're the sum of the 5 people you hang out with. So if you're around 5 high achievers who are keeping pace that at a level that you're maybe not used to being accountable for, it's going to push you and stretch you. And while it might be hard, you're like, yeah, but I've got my friends and my people to do it with. And yeah, that proximity is, I think, the quantum game changer that people talk about. And you don't always end up in the right room. That's why I do a vetting process for people coming in to make sure that like their energy is equally matched. They all have certain, skill sets and values to bring, so that they don't feel like the weakest link or they don't feel like the smartest person in the room. There has to be that like beautiful energy so that it matches the frequency of what we're all trying to build in the certain season. Like, when I started out, I worked with early stage entrepreneurs building foundational stuff. And then now I've moved into more seasoned entrepreneurs who are now maybe making a huge pivot, who've gone from one level of experience and want to pivot into something else. So that's where there's like these iterations of those niches we talked about on your podcast, and how people sometimes get bullied for being kind of all over the place or trying different things. But at one point, you wanted to do an events business, and you really thought that was going to be your next move, and that was going to be like the thing that was going to make you the money. And what did we kind of uncover when it shifted your entire direction? Because I think it kind of happened after we were done working together, but there was something that you were like, okay, I think I've created myself a job here instead of like an actual business.
It's really interesting because I can tell you the moment it happened, and I can't tell you exactly the realization that came from it, but I co-hosted a mastermind like weekend experience thing in January of 2025. And I sat in the room and I was like, I love creating these spaces. And I was like, and what I had gotten, I co-hosted it, but I was basically the planner and coordinator. Like, that basically was my role. And I left and I was like, I don't want to be the planner coordinator anymore. I want to create these spaces and create the rooms for them to be in. And like, why can't I do this on my own? Because I've been doing it for everybody else for so long. What makes me any different? And I've gone through these evolutions, but I left second guessing everything though. Like, I also second guessed the people in the room, to be honest. I was like, did I really want to be around? Like, were those my people? I don't think those were my people. And I was like, I want to create a space where my people, my ideal clients, the people who I want to support, the people I want to pour into, but also I could maybe receive from and learn from as well. I want to create a space where they can come into. And I literally took that because most of that was my idea that I had created. And I hosted 2 more of them last year in 2025 on my own in Boone. And again, that's where like coordinating it on my own though for me and getting to see the transformations in the people I called in and doing the vetting process. I mean, that's a huge thing for me as well as I don't want just anyone in the room because I think I experienced a room that I did not feel like I fit into and just that energy was not matching and there was just a lot of other stuff going on. I was like, I want to make sure the right people are in here that are going to pour into one another, but they're also willing to receive from one another very openly. And I went home in January last year and February and March, I was not on social. I was like not promoting myself. I wasn't talking about events. I closed down my community, my online community. And I was like, I don't know what's going to happen, but something's going to happen. And it was a huge identity shift is what it was. Like a massive realizing I came from corporate. I jumped right into another job that felt like corporate because I was doing everything for other people. I was burning myself at both ends, trying to put myself out there, but also trying to actually do the planning and coordinating. And I was like, I have to let this go. And in the midst of that, I got my first fractional client. And I was like, this is the buffer I need. It's the financial stability to allow me to go through this identity shift and figure out what is it ultimately I want to do? What is it that I want to create? Do I really want to start hosting my own like retreat mastermind experiences? Is that something I really want to do? And as soon as that happened, it like that's when it clicked into place. And I was like, yep, we're going to host 2 more of these this year. At the same time, I got a consulting opportunity with software stuff. And so if you don't know much about me, I actually have 2 businesses technically. It's my personal brand side, which is my events and my community and the mentorship. But I also have this consulting side of my business. And that's what's keeping me financially stable. And you talked about this on my podcast was how financial stability is such a core value of yours. And that's such a core value of mine. And if I hadn't gotten that, I don't think I ever would have figured out hosting these immersions and having IME, my mastermind experience, and all these other things would be possible if I didn't have the financial stability from the consulting side to allow me the space to have gone through that shift and realize what I actually want to be doing and the impact I want to make.
So good. But how did you realize that your strength was in operational, like COO work? Where did that consulting person come from? Like, how did that conversation even come up?
That's a great question because I just started talking about fractional work a few months prior and just throwing it out there to my local community. So only locally here in Boone, North Carolina, where I am. That's the only place I was talking about it. And the only reason I had thought about it is operations and hotels. Like literally my entire background was operations and hotels, creating SOPs and workflows. I learned 4 different software systems while I was in hotels, had to learn what and create because I opened a hotel, I transitioned to hotel. So I had always gone through this process. And I do laugh because when I got the consulting client for the software company, I said back in 2020, before COVID like was in full swing, my dream was to get hired on by the hotel. It was Marriott's openings and transitions team where they literally would go into hotels and like teach the software system and give them workflows and SOPs. And I was like, full circle, not in hotels. I'm getting to do that now. And now it's literally the part of my business that's like financially creating the opportunity for me to do everything else. I'm like full circle. So like, I can't tell you that was what I was thinking about 6 months prior. But when that opportunity hit, I was like, oh, this literally is what my dream was 5 years ago when I was in hotel.
That is what, okay, we talked about a full circle moment on your podcast when I shared about a client I've known for 18 years who just signed up for my mastermind and I've never talked to her a single time. Yeah. That's what, when people talk about manifestation, I truly believe that like the path to manifestation and clarity on our vision and goals isn't always like, let's pull some cards and we're going to have a massive download and know exactly what it is that vision's supposed to be. And I think,
oh, come on, Jess. It's not.
Well, I wish it was. I wish there was an easy button. And maybe for some people, it is a little bit more clear and they know what they definitely don't want to do and they're not willing to compromise, and I honor those people and I'm so friggin' jealous of them, to be quite honest. But for the rest of us who have, what we like to call multi-passions and we feel like we could do a multitude of things or things sometimes come easy for us, like doing events is easy for you, like, helping people with their events easy. Like you would be like, I would do this for free if I could and didn't have any bills to pay. That's how I felt about hair for the longest time. That's how I felt about mentoring people in the beauty industry, even coaching sometimes. I'm like, God, I would love to just, in podcasting, like, I wish it didn't cost me anything and I would just live this life of service. Because I think truly those of us who are like at our core people pleasers, as people want to label a bad thing, it's not. It's a beautiful thing. And it is the essence and I think ethos of people who really do well in this coaching industry and fractional work is we do care a lot about making sure that other people are successful and have what they need and have great experiences. And, like all of those systems at the hotel were meant so that the business ran smoother and that the client had a better experience and that the employees had an easier time giving that experience. Like it's like built into who you are. And I think for me too, like everyone that I've ever worked with in the beauty industry, if they weren't a quote unquote people pleaser, they didn't last very long because they ultimately didn't want to bend for the client. They didn't want to do what was ever necessary to make the experience exceptional. And I think that's what differentiates people you see online who feel like they get hustled because that person truly is just out to make a buck. They're not out to really create an impact. And you can feel that. And I think you're as authentic as they come. I think we have friends, and Desiree is one of them. Bree is definitely one of them, like who like authenticity and real, vulnerable, like service-based humans. Like that's I feel lucky enough that there must be something in me that is calling you guys in. And so to me, that's where I'm like, keep being who you are. You can still iterate and change different things, right? Like I don't promote the Start Your Damn Podcast anymore, but if people come to me and want to work with me, we definitely can go down the segment of podcasting. Same with you with the fractional work. It's like, if you happen to be someone who needs help in that capacity, I can also help you coordinate and organize an event if you'd like. There's things that we can add on later, but what is the thing that you're leading with? That's what I always like push my clients to like define that one core thing. And generally, I try to push you to choose the thing that's going to make you the most amount of money so that then you can go and chase and do other passions that might not be as, monetizable in the beginning, but have a potential to be later on, like our podcasts, right? Like they don't lead with making money, but at some point they definitely can. And I've closed multiple clients through the podcast into my masterminds and coaching because I have the visibility, I have the know, like, and trust built already from them listening to 1, 2, 25 episodes. Like you just never really know. And so, where are you at now in your business? What does life look like day to day? What does it look like now to have achieved everything based off the girl who was working 65 hours, 70 hours a week before to now?
Completely different. And also, I feel like I'm still in a transition phase because the last 6 months, about October to February, were rough for me. Someone joked, she's like, you are solopreneuring a business that is not solopreneurship anymore. And it's funny because it's not my immersions, it's not my mentorship side. That stuff has all been newer. I've been playing around with things. I've had incredible opportunities to work with people. But like, again, that's more a passion and what I want to be doing and I want to build and grow. But my consulting software stuff is where the money is at. And it's a lot and it's been draining. But I am fortunate that I am at a point now where I have this foundation in place that I can systematize doing these software transitions and migrations. So I'm bringing on, when we're recording this, I have 2 new people starting like in the next week that will be basically taking over everything I do for that side of the business almost is the goal. So I will stay visionary. I will be the one that's like getting the people to come and work and like actually partner with us so we can help them through the transition. I'll do high level project manager like timeline, and then I pass it off to my team and they're going to do everything else, which is crazy to say because I have been doing everything else the last year of doing this project. And I'm very fortunate too that I'm at a point, I have an incredible partnership with a software company who they're like, yeah, we have like 10 new people coming on and transitioning over in the next 6 to 12 months. So we have 10 new projects if you'd like to take these on. And I'm like, yeah, we need a team. I can't do that myself, but the money's there, the need is there. And now I also can think about the growth aspect of that side of the business too, which I hadn't thought about until the last few weeks because I hadn't had this basic capacity to. But what other software companies are out there that are not competitors that I can also learn to have a team that can also help with transitions and migrations as well. So it's been really cool to start dreaming into that, but I wasn't able to when I was in it and doing all of it. So to hire people, step back and be that visionary CEO now excites me. And I also, on my mentorship side of the business now, can pour into IME, my online 5-month mastermind experience. I can actually plan the immersions the way I want to and partner with people the way I want to and talk about it and find the right people to come into that container and space. And really, what I do in both of those spaces is we do a blend of masterminding, and then I come in as the coach to help you prioritize what actually is meant for you and break it down into micro steps. And that's literally my goal and my plan is to then hold you accountable over the next 5 months or If you're just doing the immersion, which is a 4-night experience, it's like I do that. I create a plan with you, and then like you have your plan with all the micro steps you need to take to go from there. But I haven't had the opportunity to really pour into that and try to grow it. But Jess, I'll tell you this alone, in the last like week and a half, I spoke at an event last week, facilitated basically this prioritization framework I've created. And I had 2 people say they want to come to the immersion in July. One of those already wants to join IME in May. And then I had like 3 others that were interested in IME starting in May. But it was like I finally could share and talk about it and had gotten clarity because I had the space to start doing that and had started toying and playing with it, but the financial burden was not there like it had been a year ago when I was doing events and stuff, when the money wasn't coming in. I had the stability financially, so I'm not relying on it right now, but now I'm getting the capacity back and spaciousness back to be able to now start pouring into that and growing that side of the business too.
So powerful. So, I mean, it's so good to hear you're still like iterating, still like making changes. And, I love that you actually didn't hire much of a team until you really, really knew like it was there and you needed it. Because at some point, I do think we have to struggle through that solopreneur time to learn kind of the different roles that are needed, especially someone who is an operational, genius. Like you can create these SOPs because you've done the work. It's really hard to hire when you've never tried the thing or done it. And that's why like I had the Start Your Damn Podcast course to teach people how to launch their own podcast and to produce it and do all that so that when you then take it, out of house to hire out for it, the value of having someone else take it over. Like you finally had someone else take over your podcast. And you see the value in not having to do all that. You get to stay the visionary, the creative, the one doing the actual fun part of the content. Like we're sitting here recording and then it's hands off and everything else just gets done. It frees up so much time, space, and capacity for you to then now go and speak at this event and close 3 or 4 deals while you're there. So for the person listening who's like, I want this kind of change. Like, this is something I need, but you just keep hesitating for some reason. It could be a multitude of things. Like, what would you say to her right now if she needed like a push?
What is one thing you can do right now to start? And I think we've talked about this a lot, but like break it down micro though. Like not, I had this conversation with somebody last week, not I'm going to go hire someone. No, like what is the first thing you need to do before you even hire? Is it like, I don't know, look at your business and like, what could you even delegate to somebody if you hired them? Is it reaching out to somebody and who has hired and asking like, how did you go through the process? Like, how did you hire someone? Because trust me, I've gone through a lot of hiring processes in the past that did not go well and I had to let them go or fire them. It's just, I think it's figuring out what is the one small thing that you can do to get you moving and taking the step in the right direction. Trust me, I mean, what I just shared now, a lot of things were big, massive steps, leaving corporate and like starting the podcast and hiring and spending, thousands of dollars on the coach. Like that might not be the right step for you and the drastic step you need to take. And you need to invest in something or take some type of risk to put some skin in the game. And I know you talk about this a lot, Jess, too, is like, you've got to put some skin in the game for you to show up. And that's probably the one thing I have learned for me personally is if there isn't money involved or there isn't something that I'm taking a risk on, I probably won't show up the way I really should or will actually take action on. And that might even be as simple as like, I don't know, 2 years ago when I left corporate, it was like that one coaching client. I was like, well, I got to show up for that one coaching client now. So maybe it's getting that one client, no matter how much they're paying you, even if it's very, very minimal, just so you'll start doing something and testing it out.
I could not agree more. We all have to start somewhere. And when I started doing haircuts, they were $40. And now I charge $150 for a haircut. I mean, it's been a 20-something year journey, but same, like color used to be $80, $70. Now it's $400. Like, gas prices were how much when you were a kid and how much, I mean, everything's relational to like where you want to go. You buy a really nice car, you got to put the more expensive gas in. You want to have a higher level business, a different proximity to different people. Like those rooms are going to cost a little bit more to get into. You want someone with more experience to be your mentor. It comes at a cost. And I think the cost of not investing in certain things like this falls into one of 2 buckets. You're not ready for that level of expansion yet. So you're saying that you don't have the money, whereas we can always find money. I think that's something you and I both share too, whether it's, I got to throw it on a credit card. Some people are very adverse to that. They're like, I would never. And I think there's some of us who are like, I remember when I joined that mastermind, I specifically got out a business credit card. It was the exact amount that the mastermind was. So basically I maxed this one card out and I thought, what is the irony that I qualified for this card with this exact amount total. And I was able to pay and get like the pay in full bonus or whatever that they gave us. And I told myself, I said, I am going to pay off this card with the money I make in this new business. And it was like a personal challenge. Nobody else cared, right? It's like no one else cares if I get up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym. That's on me. But like the power that it gave me and that feeling that I remember after I swiped that card of like, oh, it's go time. It's effing go time right now. And I showed up so big in that group. And I remember throughout those 6 months feeling actually kind of bad about how little I was accomplishing because I kept hearing people talking about making 10K a month in their online business and making this much money. And I was like, that's such a weird number. I'm like, I've been making that or more in my other business for years. Like, is that a secret number people are trying? Like, why is 10K months like such a, it was like it's such a catchphrase back then. Now I hear people talking about 50K months like it's like no big thing. I'm like, what the fuck are you guys selling? But I laugh and I only share all that because it actually took about a year later. So the mastermind I was in was 6 months. It took about a year later. And I was in a situation where I was invited into a room to do hair and makeup at an event for 2 women, 2 of which we spoke about here, Lindsay and Lori. And that event was $10,000 for 5 days. And it was teaching women how to put on profitable events by 2 very well-known event hosts. And I knew I wanted to go. And I was not willing to take out a second credit card because I had not paid that first one off yet. And I was like, what do I have to leverage? I've already invested in the one girl's room. That was Lori's mastermind. I said, and I've been to a couple of Lindsay's events. I was like, I bet if I asked and showed up, I paid my way to get there, offered my services, hair and makeup every day for 5 days. And also I volunteered to do whatever was needed right at the event. What that led to was a conversation with Lindsay when I was talking about how my business was going. And I kind of was like, oh, not so good. I haven't really made my investment back on the mastermind. And she looked up at me and she said, well, you're here this week, aren't you? And I remember thinking, oh my God, I basically made $10,000 this week by not having to pay the $10,000 to be here. And I'm actually getting to be put on a pedestal because now I'm these women's hair and makeup artist, which I hadn't seen that as like a value to add to my, street cred. But then in addition to that opportunity, they ended up having me facilitate some of the lunchtime panel talks and kind of step in more as like a co-facilitator versus just the girl who was sitting in the back who happened to have done hair and makeup. I got to fully participate in the event and be seen as somebody who was, one of them, if you will. And that changed the game for me for everything. Later on, I got hired into their mastermind as a support coach, and they gave me my first opportunity as like a full-time coaching opportunity. So it's like you really never know the return on investment until you sometimes put yourself in the rooms. But definitely, if you have questions on, obviously, Kat and I both have masterminds that we're running, but if there is a space that you feel there's a gap and you want help figuring out if you need a coach, a mentor, a course, a program, a call with our human design friend, Nicole, we've talked about, you might just need one little thing right now in your current state, or you might need a full-term, long-term container like a mastermind. I love helping people figure out where they need to go, whether it's Kat's, mine, friends of ours. Like, that's the cool thing about like show up and talk about things, and closed mouths don't get fed. If you don't ask for what you need or you're not willing to talk about it, you're probably not going to find what you need. But those of you willing to like show up and put that vulnerability out there, like, here's where I'm at, here's what I'm struggling with, here's what I need. Does anybody have any recommendations? And then go vet for yourself. Like, do I vibe with this person? Do I aspire to live a life like them? Do I like their content? Do I not? Do I want to be someone who doesn't have to do that type of content? I would really rather do this. Like, there's so many variables. So you guys do your due diligence when you're thinking about investing. We're not just talking about like swiping credit cards here. We're talking about like intentional investing, because Kat and I both made some, hefty investments, like she said, about getting in the wrong rooms accidentally. I've been in several of those, and I've joined different programs and spent quite a bit of money on things I probably didn't need, or maybe should have started at a lower tier and worked my way up. But we all learn those lessons, and that's why we can teach them now. So that's why we both have podcasts, so we can continue to share what's worked for us and what doesn't, and bring on guests that also have done the same thing. Kat, tell us a little bit more about when your mastermind starts and who it's for.
Yeah. Well, real quick, I just want to touch on too that if you do reach out to one of us and like you're like, hey, I'm interested in your mastermind, or hey, like this is what I'm going through, we will also tell you, because I know, Jess, you're the exact same way as me, is if this is not a right fit, we'll tell you also. Like, we're not going to be like, yeah, join, give us the money, swipe your credit card. Like, no, we're going to tell you if it's not the right fit, if it's not aligned, because we're very intentional about who comes into these rooms and who are a part of our circles, I think, in communities. But yeah, so IME is the Intentional Mastermind Experience. So it was birthed from the immersion that I hosted in November, lovingly, by somebody else who was like, I want to give you money. How do I give you more money? And I was like, oh, that's a great question. And it starts May 8th, or was that May 10th? Really, that following week is when we're getting started. But we do 5 months. It's a mastermind accelerator kind of container where really what we do once a month is mastermind together. You get to co-work once a month. And then I also do one-on-one 90-day planning. So you actually get to meet with me twice one-on-one during that 5-month container to actually look at your 90 days. And kind of what I talked about earlier on is not only are we figuring out what are those like 3 to 5 main priorities you're focusing on, but those micro action steps, so you actually have a checklist of how are you going to reach that priority. Because sometimes we forget there's all these other little steps that it takes to actually accomplish that goal, the priority that you're trying to reach during the 90 days. But it's a small container. I only take 8 women. I won't do more than that ever, just because I want to make sure every month we get to mastermind on each other. You get poured into, you get to receive, but you also get to give. And then we do have the guest workshops that come in every once in a while, like to pop in. So it's a lot of fun. It's been great. I learned a lot from Jess and like hers a few years ago and many others that I've been a part of. But we start in May. 5 months. I can't tell you when the next one's going to happen because baby comes in October. So we're wrapping up before then. And I have the immersion, which is an in-person part that you can tack on to IME as well. So that is an option, but it's exciting. It's been fun. It's a great group of women that I have in there right now. So I'm excited to kind of keep going with them and bring on a few new people for the last 5 months.
I love it. What do you think? Let's end with this. What is the cost of waiting another year for people to make a move? Like, we talked about timelines earlier when we were talking about like our life and all of that. And we've already shared with you what she's accomplished in just 2.5 years, which is fucking insane. But like, what does something like this cost on the other end, right? We're talking about the investments of like masterminds and rooms, but like there's a literal cost to not making a move also.
I mean, I think it does. You can't put numbers fully to it. I think it can be tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, I'm honest with my money and what I made. That first year when I was coaching with you, I left corporate and everything. I made like $5,000. That was it that first year. The next year, I made $104,000. And this year, I'm on track to make over if not close to $300,000 in the business. Now, I, again, would not be where I am if it wasn't for putting myself in a room 2.5 years ago and hiring you and being a mastermind and joining other masterminds and putting myself in other rooms as well. So I don't think there's a full number to it. But for me, like right now, that's $300,000 that I wouldn't have if not for it. So that's my number. I think everyone's different.
I could cry. I'm like, but I'm more of a jump up and down and scream because you are like, I want to say almost every single one of you that was in the mastermind has 10x'd their income, but also the growth of what's happened by pushing yourself to continue through those hard seasons where you only make a few bucks. And then, you know, like going from 5,000 to 110,000 the next year or whatever number that, like, that's insane. Right. And our goal was to get you to replace your 75K salary. Like we had a finite goal was in those 6 months. What is our goal if we could make this transformation a real deal? And we didn't have a clear path. We didn't know exactly what it was you wanted to do. And so seeing where you are now, you guys, when I tell you that Kat's intentionality around being able to help you create those plans, I'm going to have to have you come in and teach what did you just teach recently at that event?
It's my prioritization framework.
Perfect. We're going to have Kat in our House of Influence teaching that priority mastermind or core program that you did. I think because there's a way that your mind works with frameworks and being able to put things into micro perspectives to help people understand, like, I only need to do these couple of things to move the needle. We have a good friend of ours, Matt Gottesman, who really focuses on goals and breaking things down into the Gary Keller 135 processing program. And I use that a lot for my clients as well, because sometimes the things we think are moving the needle are not. They're just busy work. And we're like, we actually could probably spend less time doing this and more time doing this because this is what's actually moving the needle. So we could ramble about being efficient all day long. You guys, if you are looking for a container, you got 2 awesome ones to choose from. And if Kat wants me, I'll come and help teach over there when she's with these.
Come on over.
The more the merrier. This has been so fun. And I am so proud of you. It's such an honor to have heard your story again, even though I got to witness it and watch it. Just like hearing the groundedness in your voice, knowing that you are about to become a mother. Like, I'm like, feel like a proud mama bear over here.
Well, and thank you for having me on it again and just for everything the last 2.5 years. Like, it's crazy to think it's been that long, and also it's only been that long. So thank you.
Watch out, world. I can't wait to see you're going to be another 2.5 years. We'll be like 3 to 3, 6, 9. What's that song? Yeah. Okay. You guys, we love you so much. If you got any value out of this podcast, drop us a line on Instagram, DM, or share this wherever you watch podcasts with your friends. Subscribe to the podcast. We're live on YouTube now, The Jessica Burgio Show, if you want to watch this video of Kat and I chit-chatting. But I'm just sending you all so much love. I hope this helped you kind of look at where you're at in your life and business and make a decision, right? Because it's still early in the year and there's a lot of opportunity to make some massive changes, to shift things in your life that maybe are not working, to take the action in a certain direction, even if it's a couple micro steps, just to start to put yourself out there. If it's building a personal brand, starting a podcast, guesting on other people's shows, creating that intentional visibility, really just getting focused and clear, and sometimes maybe even just trying some things on for size, beta testing certain things, getting a coaching client for, hey, I'll coach you for $50 a month, whatever that looks like, so you can start to play around with what that would feel like in your body to hold that space if that's the move that you're looking to make. But also, if there's skill sets that you have, like Kat with the version of being a operational manager, basically looking into fractional work and now having a business that's making close to $300,000 a year, what skill set are you sitting on right now that would be something that the market would pay top dollar for? You still need a human person to have these conversations with. We can AI the F out of a lot of stuff, but it takes a human to pull out the things that are blocking you from doing the strategy and the work that you probably already know you need to be doing. So that's where the human element and the coaching and the mentorship and the camaraderie of being in a group community can be really helpful to help you accomplish the things you say you want to do. Kat, where can people connect with you? Is it social media the best?
Social media, so it's at cat.roten, Roten's the best, or my podcast, Imperfectly Impactful. So either one, that's where you will find me consistently.
Awesome. We'll put all that in the show notes below. You guys, we hope you have a beautiful week, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Jessica Burgio Show.